Today we're going to talk about Salmonella. Of all the bacteria families or groups, this is probably one of the most familiar ones. A lot of us have heard about it from things like washing chicken or the Chipotle Salmonella outbreak, etc. So today we're going to learn about it and gain some knowledge on what this is and how it affects the human body. So what is Salmonella? Salmonella is a group of bacteria that can cause salmonellosis. These are infections caused by food contamination. There are many different types of foods that can be contaminated, like meats, eggs, dairy, fruits, leafy greens, vegetables, nut butters, and spreads, pet foods, and the list goes on and on. Now, most of us have probably heard about Salmonella in certain meats like chicken or eggs, as with the Chipotle situation that happened a handful of years ago, leafy greens, and other things. So speaking of Chipotle, there's been a few outbreaks actually, but in 2015, I remember I was gonna go to Chipotle one day, and then I saw on the news there was a huge Salmonella outbreak, and so I did not go to Chipotle, I think, for the rest of the year. And this, I believe, was in Boston. About 141 people were infected, and Chipotle had to pay out about $25 million, something like that. Now, not everyone is a part of the population of people that will be significantly affected, but in general, the vulnerable populations are young children, the elderly, and those with a weakened immune system. But the risk of getting sick from the Salmonella bacteria is very real, which is why we have to take good precaution when we're preparing food. When I first made this video a while ago, I was wondering, why is it on food or in food? It's important to note that it does not inherently exist on or in food and food products. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you get chicken, Salmonella just doesn't grow there. It's not naturally present. It's always a result of contamination. So how does this happen? Well, as foods are processed, sometimes because of the way things are, animal feces can contaminate the food. Now, it's important to note that it does not take a lot. It can be a small microscopic amount. It can also happen because of hands not being washed as food is processed. If you have a massive amount of food being processed, sometimes things aren't as clean as they should be. If the tools used for processing aren't cleaned properly, that can result on Salmonella growing. And handling animals directly and not washing your hands. And this can be the case for any animal. The moral or the story is to wash your hands. Hand washing is so important to health. Some of y'all don't wash your hands. You gotta wash your hands. It's very, very important. And it's nasty if you don't wash your hands. One quick thing I wanted to mention is that it's understood that things like raw milk have more potential for Salmonella. Now, there are people that consume raw milk actively and do not get sick. I don't want to get too deep into it, but this is just something that I found, which I think is one of the reasons why raw milk isn't pushed heavily in grocery stores, but that's another video. So let's talk about salmonellosis. So when you're infected with Salmonella, the symptoms can start 12 to 72 hours after infection. The symptoms can be stomach pain or cramps, bloody diarrhea or diarrhea in general, headache, nausea, fever. About 450 deaths a year occur because of Salmonella poisoning. And to prevent Salmonella, proper hygiene is recommended, like hand washing, not cross-contaminating. A good example of this is when you're preparing chicken. Right, if you're cutting chicken or touching chicken, before you touch anything else, before you touch any tools or supplies, you need to wash your hands because Salmonella can and probably is present on that chicken. A big point of contention I wanted to make here is washing chicken. So I'm Black, I've mentioned this before, and in the Black community and other communities of color, chicken for some reason is washed. Now, in certain circles for recipes, I can understand this, but it's important to note that washing chicken is not necessary. Why? Well, it's because when you wash chicken, you're spreading chicken stuff all over your sink and all over your counter, not realizing it, trying to wash whatever is on the chicken that you think is gonna be dangerous. Washing chicken often does more harm than good and doesn't really do anything. So the treatments for this condition are water. For a lot of different things, you gotta drink a lot of water, natural recovery, anti-diarrhea medications or antidiarrheal, antibiotics. Sometimes it really depends on the case. But it seems like a lot of this, if it's not serious enough, it just resolves on its own. But it is not fun and still can kill you. You have a small chance of dying, but you still don't want to get it. So let's go to the summary and review what we discussed. So we talked about how Salmonella is a group of bacteria that can cause salmonellosis. It's caused by food contamination. It contaminates all sorts of food products. Although all of us can be infected, the more vulnerable people are young children, elderly, and those with a weakened immune system. And there have been certain restaurant chains affected, like Chipotle in 2015 and in other years. We learned that it doesn't inherently exist on foods or food products. It's caused by contamination with animal feces, not washing hands, not cleaning products, etc., etc. It's important to note that I mentioned before that washing hands and washing things is really important. This can stop the spread of most diseases. Then we briefly spoke about salmonellosis. Symptoms start 12 to 72 hours after infection: cramps, bloody diarrhea, nausea, fever. To prevent it, we need good hand washing, good hygiene, and the treatment really is water, natural recovery. If it's bad enough, antidiarrheals, antibiotics. So that's all I got. I wanted to mention this again. Wash your hands. Keep washing your hands because this will prevent you from getting a lot of different diseases and conditions. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Tell your friends, and I'll be back soon with another video.